Do you remember the buffer zones that were set up by the court in Karen Read? Well, the journalists are now suing. So let's talk about that and what exactly that means for the state of Massachusetts, for Judge Bev, and for everybody else that's involved. If you don't remember who I am, I'm Stephanie, criminal defense attorney, and loving season 3 of Karen Read because they are in their find out stage of the fucking around. So let's just take a look at like the captcha of this case because that's pretty much all I could find on Twitter. But for now, that's all we really need. So if you remember, Judge Bev ordered a buffer zone around the courthouse, right, where no one could stand there in support. They called it protesting, but in reality, it was basically just a bunch of people standing there in pink supporting Karen Read, okay? These two journalists were banned from engaging in journalism on public sidewalks. Now, from what I understand, okay, they mean in the buffer zone, right? I could be incorrect on this, but they're basically talking about that the buffer zone, they're challenging the legality of the buffer zone, right? And then you do also remember that in addition to that, they were arresting people who were like chanting out for Karen and saying like free Karen Read, even those people that were not in the buffer zone, that were behind the buffer zone. We watched that live on like 3 or 4 different lives on several different days. They were just like the Massachusetts State Police were just literally arresting people left and right who were not doing anything wrong, because you do have the right to protest, right? And on public sidewalks, they can't stop you from doing that. Okay, there are exceptions, and I think if I remember correctly from con law, I think one of the exceptions is like outside of a post office, but I could be wrong. But I think that like that's one of the exceptions. But you have, if it's a public sidewalk, you're allowed to protest. Okay, always. It's one of your constitutional rights. So the fact that Judge Bev even issued a buffer zone around the courthouse was suspect, and I know that it got challenged. Right? I remember it getting challenged, and then the courts were like, yeah, you can't do that. So the journalists are now taking this up, and they're saying, hey, we were banned. I don't know what damages they're seeking. I'm sure it's monetary, but it's interesting. It's interesting to note that like now they're saying, screw you guys. We're going to go after you. And hopefully it doesn't happen again. But I just wanted to bring it to your attention and, something for us to keep an eye on. I love civil litigation, and I'm super happy that they're going after Bev for this. So, yay. Yay. Happy New Year, everybody. Bye.